Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Cleary, and I am a program manager here at Magic. I am very, very excited. We are hot off the presses, fresh off the presentations for our Group 2 cohort for summer 2025. And I have one of our lovely mentee mentor pairs here with me. I'm so excited to deep dive into their project a little bit more. But first, if we could just have each of you introduce yourselves. Daisy, if you could just start us off.
I'm Daisy. I'm currently in 10th grade and I go to the ethical culture fields in school in the Bronx. My project was centered around having a genetic test that somebody could have at home and produce results like within an hour.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Divya, if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Divya S. This is my second summer being a Magic mentor. I'm currently a technical program manager at Intel and love taking my undergrad biology background and working with students as part of the Magic program.
Wonderful. Well, Daisy, you already told us a little bit about your project, but can you just tell us a little bit more about what made you choose this DNA kit as your area of focus for this summer?
Well, I already had an interest in like genetic testing in general, and I was sort of interested in about like how someone could execute that and what were the main ways that people like got DNA out of cells and were able to sort of like amplify that and have like results produced. And I also like was interested in learning like how the current genetic field could be expanded on because I already knew there's been like genetic test kits around, like people in my family have taken them before. So I was wondering like how can that be improved on and like what is like the current need for people taking genetic test kits now.
Wonderful. And is there anything that surprised you throughout your research, whether it was about kits that already existed or through when you were kind of putting your kit together?
I think what sort of like surprised me was like how many components are involved in making a test kit. Like there's like the chemistry aspect of it of like I need to keep this at the right concentration and the right pH. And then it's also like keeping the like area sterile while you're doing everything. And one of the main things for me was like maintaining a constant temperature. And I also was surprised about like the amount of research that there is already on genetics and how a lot of it's like accessible to find and use. Like there's like genetic libraries I was able to find, and at least with us in the primary designing process, there were already like tools around that we could use to help us like make primers that would work and bind to the gene we wanted to amplify and everything like that.
That's so interesting that there's already such a large body of work and that you were able to go to whole genetic libraries. So, with that being said, do you foresee yourself after this experience continuing to research genetics more?
Yeah, I definitely like to improve upon like the project that we've done already because like while I was able to like do the experiment and get some type of result, I still think there's like a lot of work that can be done on making it easier for a consumer to use and I guess like packaging and like finding like the technical aspects of everything like building like the syringes that people would use or like different ways that they can like mix things at home without it being too much work for someone to do without a lot of experience.
Yep. So I'm so impressed with Daisy's in-depth knowledge of the project and genetics and research. And so, Divya, can you discuss what it's like as a mentor to come in and guide a mentee who has, any idea for a project and then kind of working with them to have their project come into fruition?
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute pleasure working with Daisy. I think from the first meeting, she had already come prepared with ideas, and this lamp reaction DNA kit was the one that she was the most excited about. And so it was really just a matter of figuring out the details, right? Figuring out how to design the primers, which was a new process. So, sharing some resources around that, getting the materials, like planning the project. I think I was able to share some little tips and tricks on some of my lab experience previously to kind of help with some of the more experimental parts when she's actually doing the experiment. But I mean, she was super driven. She, you know, really took this project on and went forward with it. And for me, it was just really fun to be able to talk to her about some of the science behind it, to kind of share some of my experience and also, learn along the way.
Yeah, wonderful. And you mentioned learning along the way. And so with that, can you share one or two things that you learned from Daisy with whether, about working together or, the project itself?
Yeah, so having previously worked in a lab before, I was pretty familiar with some of the traditional DNA amplification methods, like, for example, PCR, which Daisy was mentioning in her project, where you have to go through multiple temperature cycles to amplify a certain part of DNA. But I personally hadn't really worked on this alternative reaction, this LAMP reaction, which is like much easier and faster and sort of can be done at home. You don't need a lot of fancy lab equipment. And so it was fun for me to sort of dive into the details of this reaction and learn about a new way of amplifying DNA that I also hadn't worked with before. And in terms of, working with Daisy, I think I mean, always great to collaborate and share thoughts, brainstorm ideas together, like plan together. So yeah, it was fun for me to kind of explore like a new niche of an area that I kind of was familiar with, but there was like kind of a new reaction that was added to my toolkit as well. And I think, working with her to design the primers, it was interesting to learn how you can do that online. I mean, I had done it in a lab setting before, but it was really cool for me to see how a lot of the science techniques that you'd normally use in a lab, um, you can also do at home and you can, make that happen. So it was cool to see how Daisy really pushed forward on that.
Yeah, it's so wonderful because I think a lot of people assume that mentees are the main ones learning during the summer. But, time and time again, we showed that mentors are learning so much throughout these sessions. And so I thank you for sharing your experience. Uh, Daisy, can you share with us just a few things that you've learned outside of the project itself, but maybe whether it was something you learned about yourself or, the way that you work or something like that?
I kind of learned about like just like the amount of like preparation that comes into doing like a larger scale project like this. Like usually I feel like when I work on something, it's a lot of like throughout, like I'll do different things and stuff like that. But with this, it was like make the spreadsheet and like find like all the sources where I can get everything and stuff like that, or like make sure that this will work, or like make sure that this error won't happen. And I think that like taught me a lot about like being prepared for like anything that could go wrong, and how like it isn't always that like you're doing something, but it's more that like you're preparing for what could happen. And I think that's like a really useful skill that like I can carry into other things. And like aside from just like learning about like I guess biology and chemistry and lab technique, that's like a big takeaway for me.
All right, and last question for you. So, uh, you know, when people think of summer break, they don't necessarily think of participating in a STEM program. And so, can you just share a little bit, maybe for future Magic mentees, why would they want to spend their summer working on a STEM related project, or what made you join Magic for the summer?
Well, for me at least, I've like always had this interest in science and STEM in general, about like especially biology, and that was like what I was really able to explore here. And during the school year, I don't have like a lot of free time to explore that kind of interest. Like I do sports and I have like go to activities and stuff like that. I dance and like I play field hockey, I run track and stuff like that. And I just like at the end of the day, I don't have time to do like more than what I have for my homework. And so that this was really a great way for me to like use all my time efficiently to be able to explore something I wouldn't otherwise have time to do. And I think it was like a really useful way I could have spent my summer, because while I still got to do like those summer things, like going to the beach or like getting ice cream and stuff like that, I had time to really like work on something that I was interested in without it being like confined by school or activities and stuff like that.
Right. Well, wonderful. And I hope that you take this evening to celebrate with some ice cream. You and Divya both certainly deserve to celebrate in whatever ways you see fit for all your time, dedication, and hard work this summer. You just both should be so proud of yourselves. And thank you so much for sharing your project and about your magical experience.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate your support along the way as well.
Thank you so much. I've loved working with both Divya and just like being in this program over the summer.
Likewise.